Today's parents are wary of the so-called heavy metal music.
Salut à tous, MetalXS, c'est l'essentiel de l'actualité métal et dérivé en quelques minutes, le tout en images, en musique et en interview. MetalXS est une exclusivité Refix by Crédit Mutuel, la plateforme de toutes les musiques, tous les talents en partenariat avec Artforce. C'est parti! Entre les deux dates de Metallica au Stade de France, c'est un autre événement qui s'est produit dans la salle emblématique du Bataclan le 18 mai dernier. Metallica, très attaché à la symbolique de cette salle où il s'est produit, a validé une célébration de ses 40 ans de carrière par d'éminents représentants de la scène française. MetalXS a pu assister à toutes les répétitions et aux préparatifs auxquels participaient Loud Blast, Mass Hysteria, Skip the Use, Pogo Car Crash Control, Landmarks, Tagada Jones, des membres d'Ultra Vomit et le Tribute to Trash. Nous vous dévoilons des images totalement exclusives qui préfigurent, dans les prochaines semaines, la diffusion de larges extraits de ce concert exceptionnel.
Le projet Play Em All, il naît de la volonté de Metallica de faire un takeover day entre leurs deux shows, entre le 17 et le 19 mai, à Paris au Stade de France, avec plusieurs animations. Et l'idée, c'était de faire un concert tribute band cover de Metallica. Donc ils nous ont demandé si ça nous intéressait de le faire. Évidemment, on a dit à fond, hyper intéressant. Sauf qu'on s'est dit, tiens, on va le faire un petit peu différemment. On va le faire à la française, on va le faire avec nos gars du coin, nos groupes. On a une scène qui est florissante, il y a plein de groupes, plein de styles, c'est génial. On a vraiment des champions de toutes catégories. Et donc on s'est dit, tiens, on va monter une soirée avec des groupes français. On va leur demander de reprendre 2 titres chacun de Metallica. On a appelé la soirée Play Em All. Ça a lieu au Bataclan. On a eu une réaction incroyable de tout le monde, des managers, des groupes, du Bataclan. On remercie tout le monde, c'est génial. Et voilà, ça a lieu le 18 mai au Bataclan. En sélectionnant les groupes, en demandant à tous les groupes de venir, je me suis dit, moi si j'avais un groupe aujourd'hui et on m'appelle et on me dit viens reprendre du Metallica, je me dis c'est chaud, en vrai c'est chaud. Alors on a tous nos avis sur les musiciens de Metallica qui sont excellents, mais il y a un moment, j'aimerais pas avoir été le soliste. Et ni une guitare rythmique qui chante en même temps. Donc c'est quand même des monstres. Ça s'est imposé, il s'est imposé de lui-même parce que c'est la salle rock de Paris, c'est le Bataclan. Deuxièmement, Metallica est un des groupes internationaux qui ont pris la parole direct après les événements de 2015 où ils ont sorti un album live, ils ont sorti un enregistrement live qu'ils avaient réalisé au Bataclan, un show qu'ils avaient fait qui s'appelle Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité, Metallica. La boucle est bouclée, quoi. C'était une évidence. On a demandé à tous les groupes déjà s'ils voulaient se prêter au jeu. On a eu tout le monde qui a sauté sur l'occasion, qui dit c'est génial, l'idée est cool, on y va. Malheureusement, on n'a pas pu accueillir absolument tous les groupes qui voulaient venir, parce qu'il fallait bien, là on en a déjà 7, c'est pas mal. On leur a dit quel titre de Metallica vous voulez jouer. Donc chacun est revenu. Il n'y a pas eu trop de doublons, il y a eu des arbitrages à faire. Choisi dans la palette, dans toute la carrière de Metallica, donc on a aussi bien du Hit the Light avec Loud Blast que du Lux Eterna avec Skip the Use qui a repris vraiment le dernier titre, on a Pogo qui reprend One, enfin c'est hyper cool. C'était un pari. L'objectif, la demande de Metallica à la base, c'était un cover band un peu adoubé parce qu'ils savent qu'ils reprennent bien leurs titres dans un club de 300 à 400. Et on est arrivé avec 7 groupes qui ont joué 2 titres chacun, des groupes connus qui ont leur propre parcours, leur propre carrière et dans une salle de 1600. Donc au début, quand on a présenté le projet, c'était un peu « t'es sûr, vraiment, t'es sûr ?» et en fait ça l'a fait, on est parti en vente, on a annoncé, il y a eu tout le monde qui a relayé les groupes, même Metallica, c'était hyper agréablement surpris. On a fait un artwork, une affiche dédiée, on a bossé avec Stan, que je remercie encore, qui est hyper cool, qui reprend des éléments de tous les albums de Metallica. Il y a une espèce d'alignement de planète qui fait que en 3 semaines, le show était complet, un mois et demi avant. En fait, c'est simple, mais c'est pas facile. Il faut juste que tout le monde soit aligné, et là, tout le monde est aligné. La salle, Metallica, les groupes, les techniciens, l'artwork, le graphisme, tout. En fait, il y a une espèce d'alignement de planète qui fait que ça a été une incroyable aventure, hyper facile à monter. Ouais, je pense qu'on peut être hyper fier parce que ça ne se refera jamais. Ou en tout cas, si ça se refait, ce sera pas dans les mêmes. Il n'y aura pas la spontanéité, il n'y aura pas l'envie, il n'y aura pas. Voilà, donc tous ceux qui étaient au Bataclan hier, artistes comme public, techniciens, tout le monde, on a vécu un truc. Voilà, c'est un once in a lifetime. J'espère que les gens en parleront. En tout cas, moi, j'en parlerai encore longtemps. Et voilà.
Restez donc connectés sur nos réseaux pour en savoir plus prochainement sur la diffusion de ce live. Notez sur vos tablettes les nouvelles sorties discographiques ou les toutes prochaines à venir. Il n'avait pas sorti d'album depuis 2015. Extreme revient avec un répertoire tout frais et Six, son 6e album, hard rock, funk metal, ballade, grosse guitare et chant léché, indiscutablement la promesse d'avoir regroupé tous les meilleurs ingrédients qui ont fait sa réputation depuis 35 ans. False Memories, le quintet italien de dark metal avec la chanteuse Rossella Moscatello, revient 2 ans après The Last Night of the Fall avec Hybrid Ego System, un nouvel album qui accueille notamment Annette Olzon sur le titre d'ouverture. En 2020, Janet Gardner, l'ancienne chanteuse de Vixen, et Justin James, guitariste-producteur qui a travaillé avec Stained, Collective Soul et Ticketo, avaient révélé leur association hard rock sur l'album Synergy. Ils sont de retour avec ce deuxième disque intitulé No Strings. Godflesh, le groupe indus mythique de Birmingham, revisite son passé en réexplorant le concept de son premier disque Pure, paru en 1992 au travers de son 9e album Purge. Il s'appelait Occult. Dans les années 90-2000, les Néerlandais rebaptisés Legion of the Damned en 2005 tabassent leur death thrash avec toujours autant de conviction sur ce 8e album The Poison Chalice. Chanteur du groupe américain de metal prog Fate Warning depuis 1987, Ray Alder sort son 2e album solo de 9 titres sobrement intitulé Two. The Singularity, Phase 2, Xenotaph, titre à rallonge pour ce nouveau Scar Symmetry, mais rien d'étonnant de la part des Suédois qui se sont engagés dans un concept de trilogie intergalactique dont voici le second volet pour les amateurs de death prog et mélodique. Presque 30 ans de carrière pour le groupe de hard rock originaire de Suisse, Chakra, qui poursuit imperturbablement sa route avec Invincible, 3 ans après Mad World. Pour ceux qui n'ont pas vécu les 80s, années dorées pour le hard rock glam US, disons que Rat était autant prétendant au top que Motley Crue, mais il y a peu d'élus à l'arrivée. Il y en a eu des hits et des bons titres dans la carrière de Rat il y a 35-40 ans, et le coffret The Atlantic Years Box Set est là pour nous le rappeler, édité cette fois en 6 vinyles remasterisés. Notez aussi la sortie de Cub, c'est le 10e album et premier en 5 ans pour le groupe moscovite de pagan folk metal Arcona. Ça nous vient du Texas, ça s'appelle Creeping Death, c'est du death metal hardcore et c'est produit par Adam Dutkiewicz de Killswitch Engage, titre de ce 2e album studio Boundless Domain. Histoire atypique que celle de Fifth Angel, qui a démarré au milieu des années 80, initialement avec le guitariste James Bird, et n'a repris qu'en 2018, après presque 30 ans d'interruption. When Angels Kill n'est donc que le 4e du groupe de heavy power metal. Dans la très riche discographie du groupe de blues rock sudiste de Warren Hayes, Government Mule, Peace Like a River succède aujourd'hui à Heavy Loud Blues, récompensé aux Grammys et a d'ailleurs été enregistré durant les mêmes sessions avec des apparitions de Billy Gibbons, de ZZ Top et de l'acteur et musicien Billy Bob Thornton. Au regard de ses participations comme musicien de session qui se chiffrent par centaines, voire milliers, le nombre de ses albums solo est assez modeste sur 50 ans de carrière. Bridges est le 9e disque du guitariste de Toto, Steve Lukather. La formule ne change guère, c'est du rock, parfois prog, blues, hard ou jazz, mélodique et léché, et toujours aussi brillant techniquement. En marge de Whitesnake, Iconic et Revolution Saints, le guitariste Joel Orchestra vit sa vie avec Joel Orchestra's 13 et sort son 3e album, Crash of Life, sur lequel on retrouve sur 12 titres le Woodswood Rigger, Vinnie Appice, Tony Franklin, Derek Sherinian ou encore Jeff Scott Soto. Ça y est, le voici, le 8e album du groupe culte mené par Josh Homme, Queens of the Stone Age. In Times New Roman succède à Villains, qui était paru en 2017. Il était temps. Le groupe de rock originaire d'Atlanta, Royal Thunder, dévoile son 4e album, Rebuilding the Mountain, le premier en 6 ans, garantie 100% spontané car enregistré live en studio. Même en tendant l'oreille, on n'entendait pas beaucoup de jazz dans Motorhead, mais le rendez-vous culte de la musique en Suisse a toujours su élargir au rock ses cartons d'invitation. Live at the Montreux Jazz Festival 2007, c'est le témoignage de cette rencontre entre le trio et l'institution helvétique. Lorsqu'en octobre dernier, River Sons a dévoilé le premier single de son futur album et son clip, cela faisait quelques mois qu'on en avait eu un avant-goût en live sur la scène du Hellfest. Très vite, on a compris que cette sortie ne serait pas comme les autres. L'intensité, l'émotion et la qualité des compositions que nous découvrons aujourd'hui sont telles que Dogfighter, 7e album studio de la formation californienne, est un pur bijou dans sa discographie. Mais il ne vient pas seul puisque dans quelques mois paraîtra Light Bringer, un autre album, comme deux pièces qui s'emboîtent pour former une œuvre globale. Nous avons rencontré Jay Buchanan et Scott Holiday, duo magique dans l'écriture, lors de leur venue parisienne, et ils nous ont offert une rencontre particulièrement forte en émotion, autant dans la musique qu'ils nous ont interprétée en acoustique que dans le propos. Le précédent album Feral Roots avait une sonorité très sudiste, empreinte de gospel et de soul. Quelles ont été les influences qui ont porté le groupe à la création de Dark Fighter?
Here's the wild thing. We didn't talk about that. We didn't talk about those things. I think that the way the collection ended up coming about was entirely organic, I can say, in that respect. I think that it was really just Scott and I passing songs back and forth to each other. It was really, we were going through so much culturally with the pandemic and the shit show that we had in the United States, that it was very much, songs were being written and songs were coming to fruition as a matter of necessity, I think more than planning.
Yeah.
And in that respect, I really can say very honestly, it was a very, very organic experience.
From my side of things, like any riffing or songwriting that I started on was mainly based on a tuning that I was enjoying and chordal movement, maybe some new pedals and stuff that I had for texture and kind of a new color. So I was looking at it much more in an artful way than like this is gonna be our whatever, you know, like gonna go in this genre or in this world musically.
Well, we should probably get an up tempo, or we should probably make the collection needs this.
Yeah, or like
something like that.
Needs it's gonna be like our southern tinged record or whatever. It was much more just innocent in a way, and in that way, to me, becomes more like intellectual. Like it was really just about chord movement. Like I play a lot. I write mostly with an electric guitar unplugged, because it's the plainest, cleanest thing. There's no color or anything yet. It's just chordal movement, like what works really nicely. You know, it's not like about effects. People will probably be surprised because I use a lot of color once it's all down. People know me to use a lot of guitars and a lot of pedals, but when I'm writing, it's the simplest possible platform. So I know this movement works, is beautiful, or it's like aggressive, like that's cool, that sounds cool. And then I'll put that down very simply, usually the electric guitar, not plugged in, into my phone and give it to Jay. Like, let's work from the ground up. Before we start putting color on the painting, let's sketch it out together without color. And then from there, we'll start throwing color on there. And we're throwing color at it, you know?
Very much like with me, it will be, I'll just be playing bass and singing, throw him something, or I'll just acoustic guitar, throw it over to Scott, and then we'll collaborate from there. Now, all of these things that we just said, as they apply to the Dark Fighter, Lightbringer, you know, these two records, it's not to say that on Feral Roots we sat back and masterminded like a whole bunch of stuff. I think that it's just that the collection for that record, things were falling into place in a different way because we were living a very different thing. We were making our first, making our major label debut, and we were reassessing a lot of the ways that we had collaborated prior to that. So Feral Roots was definitely a sharp right turn from anything that we had made before, but I truly believe that making Feral Roots gave us the certainty of purpose to make Dark Fighter, certainly.
You can't just set out to make a record that sounds like you. That's like, you can't start your career and say, I want to be the most original band and accomplish that in general. Maybe some people have done it. We could probably find a few. In general, you emulate your heroes the best you can and try to put your own thing on it. When a band is young, that own thing doesn't come through so great for most of us, for most acts. But as you progress, it just starts to naturally happen, I think. If you work hard and you're looking that direction and you're working for that. We're at a place, I think, on this record where that was played a real big role. I think we just, every time we do this, but I'm proud of the collection because when I listen back to it, we've been touted and called out for sounding like a band from the 60s or a band like the 70s. I think when you hear this record, that's not what you hear. I think when you hear Darkfighter and Lightbringer, you're not thinking, ooh, this sounds like a band from 1973. It sounds like a band from now. It sounds modern, it sounds current, and if anything, we set out for that, to sound like we're reflecting our own time.
Depuis le début de l'année, le groupe distille des clips dont certains, pour la première fois, font preuve d'une grande autodérision, mettant en scène ces musiciens qui auraient très bien pu être des personnages d'un film de Tarantino. Sont-ils parvenus à rendre Darkfighter aussi cinématographique musicalement à l'image du dernier titre de l'album, Dark Side?
Ooh, well, this is going to take a minute. Dark Side, I was going through a rough time, you know. We were in the middle of the pandemic. The previous year in 2019, my closest friend from childhood had he let me know that he had a very secret drug addiction to painkillers. He had, you know, this is a very, very common story in the United States. He had an injury at work, and so then he was prescribed pain medication. And in order to keep working through the pain, he needs more, and the doctor gives him more. And then his prescription runs out, and he's hooked on these pills. Happens every day. I mean, families are torn apart every day in the United States through the unregulated prescriptions of these opioids. So anyways, he lets me know he's going down the tubes, and he becomes estranged to his family, his wife, his kids, me. For the first time ever in my life, I was watching my friend just crumble. He was an addict. And I can't get a hold of him, and I'm wondering if he's going to be okay. You grieve for an addict while they're still living, and he's gone now. But you go through a very unique grief because they're still alive, but they're trapped in the trunk of their own car while the addiction is driving. And so I put this song together because I couldn't not write about it. It was so important to me. It was so heavy on my heart and on my mind. And so I put together this long form melody that would tell the story melodically along with the lyrics, and that it would kind of grab you and then not let up until the last word of the phrase had been said to completion. So I put this song together, and then I had, you know, the verses and the chorus together, and I sent it to Scott, and he, in turn, knowing very intimately my life and knowing what I was going through and knowing my friend Ryan, he sends back to me this riff that was in turn the heaviest, darkest riff I had ever heard him write before, and I believe that it exemplifies perfectly the actual dark side, the friction and the loss of identity that our protagonist in this song is going through. Yeah, it's a heavy one.
Yeah, and sonically, even sonically, before we had the song recorded, what Jay sent me, him singing the song on this baritone guitar, that's it, just that. Just his voice and the guitar, I felt like it really had everything. It spoke to me and had everything that it needed. Like, this is very affecting. Like, hit me, you know? That's how it's far out to work and have partners that you work with, have a partner that writes something that you're like, whoosh, this is like impacts me from an iPhone recording, from a notes recording, you know? this is amazing. This is like powerful. You know, it's honest. All I could do was support it and come up with this riff and just give it some support and light and shade that it needed. But when we went in to record it, we didn't want, it's a funny thing, you don't want to overproduce something like that. So we were able to, with some great techniques from Dave Cobb, create this feeling where Jay feels like he's right next to you, singing right in front of your face, and everything else that's happening, all the painting that I'm doing to support the song, and the texture and the color to support what he's saying, it's back here. It's like floating, so you feel like you're in a very big room with the storyteller right in your ear. And as it crescendos up, it just becomes a very affecting technique, you know? It becomes frightening. The crescendo becomes like jilting and frightening. And I think that light and shade is a really great moment on the record, and a great moment for us as a band to really be able to manipulate sound and emotion like that.
I can hear the orchestra fell into your eyes. Let your gaze fall and let the overture rise to debut slowly. That's where I long to.
Rival Sons, sur la plupart de ses albums, offre toujours une chanson particulièrement émouvante et à fleur de peau. C'est le cas de Rapture sur Dark Fighter.
Well, you know, for my part in our creative process, I really don't like small talk, and I'm not good at it. And so when I have to go and hang out at parties or just, I think that it suits me much better to try to tackle something within. And in order for a song to even live in the first place, it has to be worth something. It has to have an emotional currency. Because I'm going to get up there and I'm going to sing this song night after night. It becomes a mantra that I have to recite. And I think that it's much, the instinct is to want to express something that actually means something. Express something that is going to be about the salvation that you are running toward in your life. Your transcendence at some point, this beacon of light way down the road that you started out decades ago, and you're just trying to run toward that one thing that is going to be the end of your life, but you have in between now and then to try to become as fully realized of a human being that you can become. And you're going to have all of these obstructions and all of this bullshit, and you're going to have all of these things that are going to get in your way for you to jump over or circumvent and go around. When you can write about something that is meaningful to you, you're compelled to do it, and you must write that way. And I would say that this album as a whole is rife with these themes, is rife with heavy lifting emotionally. Rapture in of itself was one. Scott sent me this great riff, the main riff. He sent that to me, and he sent these verses that have this really unique turning of a time signature. So then it caused me, I sat with it for a while, and I knew I loved it. I sat with it, and then, so it was on a baritone that he sent it to me. And so once again, I go back to my baritone acoustic. So I sat with it, and I wrote this turnaround for the verse, and this pre-chorus, and then this chorus. It all came together. I remember when I was writing, it was one of those rare songs that you're lucky when they come about this way. Whereas Dark Side was very painful to write. It was just weeping through language. Or grieving. Rapture was very different. Rapture felt very much like a transcendence, about writing about these beautiful, beautiful inner landscapes, and about springing out like a weed out of the concrete. It felt very much like that the entire time, and writing a long form melody once again that doesn't repeat itself. So putting this song together, every time we get to play this song, whether it's full band or just Scott and I just now acoustically, I feel good. I feel good singing this song. I feel good inside. It's like I say, it's like I'm eating something that my mother cooked for me, or something that feels good within my soul. I love that song.
Lors d'une interview au Zénith en 2015, nous avions parlé avec Scott de ses doubles albums préférés, et il en avait cité 3. L'album blanc des Beatles, Physical Graffiti de Led Zeppelin et Exile on Main Street des Rolling Stones. Ne sont-ils pas arrivés à un moment où l'idée de sortir un double album les a effleurés avant de partir sur 2 disques distincts dans la même année?
Isn't that great when artists are just walking contradictions? There's only 3 good double albums. Let's make one. We didn't set out to make a double album. I stand by that other statement. I remember that conversation. I've had to talk about that same thing while we're out here doing some other press. And I do feel that way. That illustrates really the idea of why we broke them up. You know, when we didn't set out to make this much music and put it out that way. Nobody really wants to hear, or I don't really want to hear, an hour and 15 in one statement. It's a lot to digest. Even an album as great as like The Wall, you know, I still, to this day, they're one of my most favorite bands. It's an incredible record, but it's hard to digest the whole thing in one sit. You almost have to be on drugs to like want to sit through it and really digest it and go through the whole thing. When I'm listening to music casually or even a little introspectively, one record, I'll come back to the other record some other time, you know, and it might be the first one or the second one, whatever. So when we set out to do this album, we just made songs. There wasn't even a really, let's make an opposing theme or anything. Jay just wrote, we just wrote. It was when we started to pare them down that, we need to make one record that's digestible. Let's get the statement together. And there was very apparently that like kind of like polarizing theme happening. And there was nothing we wanted to pare down. We knew these all lived and they all had to be on there and all made sense to the collection. So we pretty effectively and quickly were able to see how they spread apart. That's that, this is that. And that was really how it went, you know. We talked about putting them out together as a double very briefly and didn't like that idea, and that's why we're doing it the way we're doing it.
Yeah, we wanted to space them out. Spacing them out to allow a refractory period, like an intermission. We wanted the listeners to sit with Dark Side for a few months. That closing statement of to sit with Darkfighter. The closing statement of Dark Side that wraps up the Darkfighter record, that's a cliffhanger because you hear that low drone and that's the darkness. And that's for that installment, that's the darkness prevailing over the light. And we wanted everyone to sit with that for a few months. So that
people say we're a growing band. They say like we're a band who makes records. They grow. They grow. There's a reason for that. To me, that's not a bad comment. Records that grow on you are records that are like the onion that peels. There's layers and layers, right? Our records have layers. They're not so one-dimensional. There's thematic layers. There's certainly musical, colorful layers as you get deep into it, and rhythmic layers as you get deeper into it. So we wanted to let you really digest that first collection, and like don't just like move on and like try to take it all down.
We live in binge culture.
Yeah,
all of us.
People can tolerate 15 seconds of something.
If you're given the opportunity, you will binge, and we wanted to make sure that didn't happen.
And short attention. 15 seconds, give me 5,000 things at 15 seconds, please. That's not this kind of a thing. That's not what we are, and that's not what this is. This is something that we want you to sit on, and our fans are like that too.
Scott et Jay font partie de ces duos de composition comme le rock en a connu d'exceptionnel, mais les relations ne sont pas toujours faciles entre deux artistes. Comment définirait-il justement le lien qui s'est créé entre eux?
How would we qualify?
Never been asked that. I don't know how to answer that. Why do we have to qualify it?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it works like this. I'm a driver. Scott is a driver. Neither of us are wired to be a passenger. So when we got together, I think that early on, it took a few albums, even though we collaborated right away. I believe that it took some years, and it took writing a lot of songs together for the trust to be built up to where it is now, where we'll disagree. Of course, we'll completely disagree about things, but we have an agreement, we have a partnership, and we're family, and we're friends. So when we are working together, like, if I'm trying to explain something to him and he's not seeing it and he sees it another way, well, it's my job to try to express that in a way to get him to, he knows me, to try to get him to see what I'm saying and illustrate it. Very same thing goes for Scott bringing something to me. It's up to him to articulate it in a way that he's going to be able to campaign for it to get me to understand. We're far past the idea of coercing each other into it, getting them in a headlock, right? You should go like this, right?
In any partnership, it's about two sides challenging each other and complementing each other. In a marriage, it's like that. Certainly in a creative relationship, it's like that. So the things we disagree on, you guys out there in the world who like us, you're glad about that.
Yeah.
The things we agree on, you're glad about that. It's all of it, you know? And I'm glad about it and about both of those things. When I'm challenged, I'll fight it to the ground, and so will he. Because that's the kind of people we are. That's the kind of passion we operate with. We'll fight it to the ground to the point where we will get in our own like butt heads really hard. But that doesn't last long, and that's what I ask for in a partner. If I had somebody that just agreed with everything and just did everything I wanted to, honestly, I would just do it because it's just easier for me to just do it all. I'm sure it's the same for him. We do things differently and we collaborate nicely and complement each other in that way. I guess that's the qualification.
SONS, ce sera en France pour 3 dates, à Nantes le 24 octobre, Lyon le 25 et l'Olympia le 27. On sent qu'il y a quelque chose de spécial qui s'est installé entre le groupe et la France.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. There's something happening. Do you feel it, France?
I wonder
Absolutely.
if France feels it the way we feel it. Because there's a time, I wonder if the lineage is the same. You can tell me and everybody can decide and make comments and stuff about it. But when we first started coming to Europe, 2012, France was the single hardest country in Central Europe, you know? Like, it was like, we're playing to like 300 people maybe, and it wasn't incredible, but that's the first time. And I think we came back again and it was still rough, and we're going, man, I actually remember having conversations with you and saying, maybe we're not gonna go to France. Maybe France doesn't work for us, I don't know. And
out of the question.
Yeah, obviously it's out of the question, but we were having so much trouble. Sometimes you just get that defeatist attitude, like, man, maybe we just need to go everywhere else. Maybe France doesn't love Rifle Sons. But that wasn't the case at all. We have a wonderful partner in, how would we say, in Toledo Genman.
She's like our liaison. She's our French connection.
A publicist, our European publicist, and our French connection. She's from the UK, but she has a very, very close relationship with France and was determined as she was working with us. Determined. No. France is gonna love you guys. They just haven't seen you yet. So we're like, how are they going to see us? And unbeknownst to us, she had something working in the works for a while, and that was to get us on a show that used to be here and really popular and great, Le Grand Journal, right? Le Grand Journal. So she got us on this show on her own sweat, and we could not be more excited and happier to do it. And it was after that show that things actually changed. It's like we actually got to be seen by the people of France. I think everybody kind of went, oh, you guys are ours now. We like you now. You're in the club now. And the shows got bigger, and it became just like that, like getting into a club. And immediately I felt like we saw France for the first time at those shows, and they became some of the most powerful shows we played to that point. The way they looked at us during the songs, the way they sung along, it was just emotional. I mean, I have in my home, I have a gigantic picture of us playing the Trianon. Yeah, I have two huge pictures because it was so memorable for me. I keep them in my home and I look at them every day, and one shot's from our back out into the audience looking at the venue where I can see everyone's faces and excitement and love. So I think that's the point where we felt we have this relationship and we're never gonna let go of it.
I will tell you this right now. It doesn't matter if I'm in Mexico, if I'm in the United States, or Norway, or the UK. I tell everyone the same thing because they all want to know. What's your favorite place to play? France. France is my favorite audience. The French audience, I can't articulate it properly because I don't speak French yet. As soon as we got over here and started playing to a French audience, I felt something that I hadn't ever felt before from an audience. Typically, I'm there, I'm singing for me, I'm singing for him, and the band is playing for itself. There was something coming from the audience in France. And for the first time in front of a crowd, I felt understood. And that is a powerful thing, to feel understood as an artist and as a person. There was no need to prove anything, and there was just no pretense, and there was no stage, and there was all of these things just disappeared. And there's something about the French audience where I just feel so at home. I feel understood. It's a powerful thing, so thank you.
Voilà, MetalXS, c'est terminé pour aujourd'hui. On se retrouve dans 15 jours pour un nouveau numéro avec toujours plus d'interviews, de surprises et de contenus inédits. Un immense merci pour votre fidélité et n'oubliez pas de prolonger l'expérience métal sur riffix.fr. Salut!